Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing.
Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 486 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. Thanks for being here. I hope you're having an amazing morning or afternoon or middle of the night, whenever you're listening. I bet you're here because you hope you hear something that can make your day just a little bit better. And I will try not to disappoint you. My husband sent me a post this last week and it said, "Get the real dopamine of life." So sauna, work out, climb the mountain, have the relationship. It went on to say, don't live your life on a screen because you can't reach your full potential when dopamine is that easily attained. That is so true, isn't it? I mean, we weren't meant to get our highs and lows from a screen. The dopamine we get from social media is so saturated that everything else feels boring in comparison. It's like eating donuts and hamburgers and milkshakes and wondering why broccoli tastes so bland. If you've been wondering why some of the things you used to love a lot feel maybe a little bit boring to you, it could be your brain is hyped up on saturated dopamine. It may need a cleanse. That's just a little food for thought. The quote made an impact on me, so I thought I would share it here. Okay, so in Monday's episode, I talked about how sometimes I have thoughts like I'm tired of having high standards. Just a momentary thought, but one that is not useful. And I talked about how I wrangled it to the ground. And if it pops up again, I'll be already aware that it's not useful and I'll wrangle it to the ground again. In other words, I'll get control of it before it gets control of me. That's probably one of the most useful tools I've had in all of my years of studying Stoic quotes and reading Wayne Dyer and Eckhart Tolle and Tony Robbins, is recognizing that thoughts that could be problematic for us, we have control over them. We don't have to just allow them to run our life. We can actually turn them around or stop thinking them. Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. And he's quoted as saying, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thought. Therefore, guard accordingly, and take care that you entertain no notions unsuitable to virtue and reasonable nature." I like that idea of not entertaining a thought that isn't useful. Simply just don't entertain it. But what does that mean, though? Well, for me, it holds the reality that we are going to, without a doubt, have thoughts that are not useful. It's how our brain works. But also the reality that we get to decide whether that thought is gonna wreck our day or cause us to cancel the plans, pick a fight, drink all the alcohol, whatever it is you do when you entertain thoughts that aren't useful. It holds the reality that it does not have to be that way. That's the idea of not entertaining a thought. A thought is the seed to every action. If you look at the things you've accomplished in life, they started with a thought. You know they did. If you look at the things you've done that maybe you wish you hadn't, they started with a thought too. So our whole life is driven by our thoughts, which is kind of scary given the fact that all of us really have around 50,000 thoughts a day, and upwards of 80% of them are negative. So our job as the watcher and the creator of our own life is to sift through which thoughts are going to move us forward and which ones are going to hold us back or set us back, because we're going to have both types of thoughts. It's just one of our biggest jobs to decide which ones to entertain and which ones we aren't going to entertain. So just recently when my family was in town for their religious convention, we are not part of their religion, but they were spending time in the town that I live with my other sister, who she won't have anything to do with us because we're not in her religion. But my mom and dad and big sister, who I spend a lot of time with, even though they're still in the religion, they still see us a lot. But they were all in town and they would go to dinner and not invite us. They used to, but now that my sister won't really have anything to do with us, they don't invite us anymore. And I noticed thoughts popping up like, well, they could stand their ground for me, or it's okay to hang out with me when she's not around. Why am I left out when she is around? Now I noticed these thoughts popping up, and I also noticed and I knew that they weren't useful. even though they were true. I mean, they weren't inviting us, but they weren't useful. They're not serving me or anyone else. So I changed them. I told myself, you know what? I get to see them all the time. And it makes them happy to get to spend what time they can with her. So it also makes me happy for them to be happy. And that's how I framed it. I'm happy, they're happy. And that's where I left it. And anytime a little thought popped up that was negative, that I just reminded myself, but it's my choice that I'm not there, and I'm happy they're happy, which was true. I wasn't lying to myself. I just wasn't letting myself go down a rabbit hole that wasn't going to serve me or anyone else. So those are the type of thoughts you want to wrangle to the ground quickly. Get hold of them before they get hold of you. I've been reading a book at night. It's a little bitty book. I recommend it to anyone who listens to this podcast regularly. You'll like it. It's called The Laws of Spirit by Dan Millman. He's the author of The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. This is actually a book that Eric gave me. But anyway, it's a really good book. But in it, there's a man, and he's speaking with a sage throughout the book. And at one point, they come to a fork in the road, and he asks, which one of these paths is best for me? And she tells him, well, both lead to the same place, but one of them is a lot more difficult. So as I look back on my life, I believe that to be true. I mean, I've made decisions that have set me back and decisions that have catapulted me forward. The decisions that set me back, they made life hard, but the growth that came from them, I wouldn't change. And looking back, I realized I probably needed that growth that came with that mistake. So here again, thoughts of regret over past mistakes are not useful. Don't entertain those thoughts about things that are not useful. Simply don't entertain them. When one pops up, and it will, tell yourself, just say, come on, that's not a useful thought. I do it a lot. The other day, Eric, my husband, was a little grumpy, and I noticed that I had a thought like, I'm so tired of him being grumpy, which was not useful and could have led to other not great thoughts about him. And then I realized, hey, wait a minute. You know what? He's not really grumpy that much. He's awesome. He's just a little stressed right now over a few things, and I understand. So I need to be empathetic. He's always empathetic with me, and that was what I thought. That changed everything. And he noticed too. Later that evening, he thanked me for always being so supportive. He knew he was being grumpy, and he felt me loving him through it. Sometimes used to, I would get grumpy when he'd get grumpy. And that doesn't work. And I changed my thought, and it really did just make our night better. Just that one little thought adjustment. I didn't allow myself to entertain that thought of him being grumpy. Even though I had the thought, I didn't entertain it by continuing to think it and then adding to it. Because we do add to it when we dwell on something. We just continue to add to the negative thoughts. So we're going to have thoughts, but we don't have to entertain them. And I know that's not always easy, but it is always possible. The more you do it, the better you get at doing it, which strengthens your mind. There can be no peace of mind without strength of mind. That's another quote by Eric Gutkind. Learning to not entertain negative thoughts is a really good place to start strengthening your mind. My challenge to you this week is to notice one time you have a negative thought and actively say to yourself, you know what? I'm not going to entertain that thought. And then think something that feels better. There's always a better feeling thought. Share this with 3 people that you love. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days.
Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.